May the words of my mouth and the meditations of all of our hearts be ever pleasing in your sight, O God, our strength and our Redeemer. Amen. Sermons can be tricky things. They're not always the easiest to preach. But the main goal, and the goals for different people for different sermons are different. But for Lutherans, the goal of a sermon, as to paraphrase one of my professors who had one more word in that we're not going to add, the goal of Lutheran sermon is to preach the gospel. Very simple. Doesn't sound simple. To preach the gospel, which basically boils down to this. We do none of this on our own. God's grace intercedes for us and we are saved. Basically, God loves you.
Amen.
That's what we get to at the center of a sermon. If you peel back the layers, if you pull back the curtain, if you look at what's going on, the center of it almost always comes back to God loves you. And sometimes that has layers to it. It becomes more difficult when you realize the implications that God loves you and what that means for you now in the world, and how you're to live and what you're to do. So even that simple phrase, God loves you, can become a difficult thing to preach. But what makes today's sermon even more difficult is that awful gospel text we just added. I mean, it's just confusing. And it's full of all these characters that aren't terribly likable or honest or good. It comes to three separate conclusions at the end. There are three ways that story could end, and they're all in there. It's like the author of Luke just went, I don't know how to end this, so I'm going to put all three in, and you're going to figure it out. It'd be much easier to just go to the Old Testament this week, to preach about not trampling the poor, about not cheating the downtrodden. I mean, that's pretty self-explanatory. That's an easy one to do. But when we get texts like that, the preacher has to address it. We have to untangle it a little. We have to figure out where is the God loves you. And whatever that parable was. So let's look at the parable we just heard. In the parable, we have a master. And he gets word that his manager, who is a slave, not just a manager, he is a slave himself, his manager is cooking the books. His manager is not managing well, his manager is skimming off the top, his manager is doing something wrong. And so the owner calls for the manager and says, show me the books. I need to know what's going on. What's wrong with my business? And by the way, you're fired. The manager is concerned about losing his job. Because, as he says, he would be demoted at this point. So he'd either be digging or begging. That's all he's got. So he says, I am not strong enough to dig and I am too proud to beg. So I won't do either of those things. So what am I to do? And in kind of a dishonest and shady move, I mean, he's already been kind of shady to begin with, he's cooking the books, he goes to the debtors, to his master, and says, how much do you owe? If you pay me now, you can cut it in half. If you pay me now, I'll knock off 20%. It's a great deal. And it gets his master some fast money. And for some reason, the master isn't necessarily upset about this and somewhat impressed by the mischievousness and maybe even the gall of this manager who goes and in one last act does something to preserve himself. Because the manager knows by cutting these debtors a deal, he can go back to them later. They owe him now. If you remember last week and the week before, we talked about that patron-client relationship. It's all about who owes who. And now this manager has put himself in a place where someone owes him something. But it's still not one of those satisfying parables, is it? Again, none of these people feel good. They all feel kind of icky. You've got a master who's just kind of mean and cruel. You've got a manager who is dishonest and is cutting deals. And you've got a snitch running around there somewhere that we don't know about. It's not pleasant. And then we get to these three conclusions, these 3 points, I guess, that Jesus makes. Because usually there's only one point to a parable. This time we have 3. Number 1, make friends for yourself via dishonest wealth, so that they might welcome you into the eternal home when the wealth is gone. Again, this sounds dishonest wealth. What does that mean? We were sitting in Britain like, I don't get it. But when we talked about it more, when I engaged in some of the commentaries, we're looking at that act that the manager did by cutting the debt so that someone would owe him, by sharing the blessing he had, by using the power he had to help others. He would be welcomed into their home. And if we really think about it, all wealth is dishonest, is it not? All we own, everything, is not ours. We did not attain it ourselves. It is a blessing from God. It is God's wealth, God's blessing, God's stuff, not our stuff. We all hold dishonest wealth. So how do we use that dishonest wealth in the world? Do we help others with it, or do we hoard it for ourselves? Are we like the manager, cutting deals with people, relieving some of their burden and their stress? Make friends via dishonest wealth. Make friends via the blessings that you have in your life. Conclusion number 2. Whoever is faithful in little is also faithful in much. Whoever is dishonest in little is also dishonest in much. For if you can't be trusted with the dishonest wealth, who will trust you with the true riches? Sorry, I have to flip. God has trusted us with these blessings. God has blessed us richly, some more than others. And that's not to say we all still won't have struggles in our lives, true, but we have blessing. And we are entrusted to care for those blessings and to use them to better ourselves, to better the world around us, and to better those in need. So are we being responsible with our dishonest wealth? Are we being responsible with the blessings we have? Because if we are, then that means God will bless us more, and that means God will welcome us all the more, because we're living out the call we are called into. Number 3, no slave can serve 2 masters. This is the one everyone always focuses on with this reading. For you either love the one and hate the other, or vice versa. You cannot serve God and wealth. Now, if you remember way back last year, when we started into Luke, we talked about how Luke is often considered the social justice gospel because it is always focused on the poor and the downtrodden and the outcast. The author of Luke Acts is always pushing towards that edge, and Luke has a serious problem with rich people. Luke has a serious problem with wealth. The author of Luke doesn't like wealth. Luke doesn't see how someone can be wealthy and see the suffering in the world and not share it and do something to help. So that's why always when you're reading Luke, we'll see him come down harder and harder on wealth, especially in this line here. You cannot serve God and wealth. And it can seem harsh, especially as we live in one of the richest nations in the world, especially as we are especially blessed. But we can understand Luke's logic, can't we? We've seen how wealth can take over our lives. We've seen how trying to get things and money and more for ourselves can distract us from God. Or we've seen it lead others astray. We can be tempted by the building up of possessions for ourselves, and it can distract us from God and our call here on earth. So although Luke might be harsh, Luke's giving us that reminder that we heard about in these last 2 conclusions, that we should be responsible with our blessings, that we should try to share where we can. We should try to make the world a better place around us. And if you boil down all of those conclusions, all those blessings, all of what we just talked about, We're going to be good managers of those blessings. Doesn't it go back to Jesus loves you? God loves you. God loves you, so God blesses you. God loves you and God blesses you. And God expects you to share that blessing with others. That's what is at the core of this story. Even though it is confusing, even though it's layered in some murky characters, even though it's hard to get through, we still go back to that central point that God loves you. And we will respond to that love. And we won't always respond perfectly. We're not good all the time at sharing our blessings. We won't always succeed. But like the manager in the story, when we get the chance, even when we're forced to because of circumstances out of our control, we will share where we can. We'll provide relief and blessing where we can. Every time we screw up, at the same time we'll get back up. We'll continue to try and live out that call. Because when we share those blessings, we remind others that Jesus loves them too. And we continue that cycle and that message that we're always going back to. God loves you. And God always will. Amen.
Amen.